Welcome to Decentral Lens, where lifelong friends Blutoshi and Disco navigate the ever-evolving crypto landscape. With genuine curiosity and a commitment to nuance as our North Star, we offer clear-eyed exploration. Our goal? To empower listeners with the tools and insights needed to flourish in this decentralized age.
Well said, Disco. Well said. All right, everybody, we are finally live now. We had to.
This
we had
is
to
not
test
a
out.
test.
I figured out how to finally get horizontal not to look like squished vertical. You got to have horizontal open as the program opens, and we got it. We're horizontal. We're here. We're live. This show is all about Bitcoin macro. All the way down to full runes, halvening, degenning, and everywhere in between. Maybe a little ETH, a little Solana, just to see how they're doing. No deep dives in Solana at all, but just making sure the network's up and stuff like that. Ooh, I already a dig on the show. So
couldn't resist.
Yeah, I am Blutoshi, and we're back to the horizontal. This is great, and on my right is Disco.
Hi, everybody. We're on even footing now. I'm not below. I can't tell you, but I'm quite excited about going horizontal, and I'm excited about some of the ideas we have to kind of take this to a different positioning and different imaging moving forward. So stay tuned. I think we got some good stuff in the can that we're going to be building out.
Yeah, we're going to up the templating for sure. We love the logo, and we love the name Decentral Lens. I think it's a good fit, but the wavy electric sunshine daydream AI lines, we might be getting a little old. So I think we're going to do a full upgrade. We just talked about before the show, and we're excited. So Disco, pre-halving, here we are, calm before the storm. It's actually not as much crazy stuff is going on, certainly with RSIC and their partnership with mainland and stuff like that. In the macro sense, like there's a lot of stuff. Obviously, Bitcoin is down. It's strange. And you had mentioned before the show, and it's worth bringing up again. I'd love to get your take. Like, I feel kind of good that it's down. I'm like, but I could buy a little more. Bring it,
dude. It's such a First of all, let me preface it by saying, by no means am I, happy about, worldwide disruption or, wars of any sort, right? Like that's a total legit disclaimer. However, I had so much FOMO, pretty much ETF into halvening, like that little stretch where I'm like, I'm never going to be able to get this at an acquirable rate, and I'm not going to be able to, stack sats. And then when I see these opportunities, and I know historically, like, yes, there's a pullback usually right before the halvening, usually, like 20% for the last one. I think it was closer to 40 the one before. So you knew that something was kind of coming. You'd have another chance to dip in, but I'm giddy as a little schoolgirl jumping in there and trying to dollar cost average. And I'm like, hey, we can still get a little bit more, and I get so happy then, pulling it off the exchange and throwing it to a freaking Bitcoin wallet and being like, because then you start feeling like you got a little walking around money, for some of the projects that I've been keeping an eye on and things like that. So I feel terrible about the, kind of geopolitical situation, but by the same token, the other thing that I think is driving this price is the freaking stickiness of the inflation. And, that kind of goes back to the Fed again, kind of dampening things. And, obviously the risk assets, we're talking from a macro perspective, but all those are getting dinged a little bit because when we started the year, I want to say they said they were expecting 6 rate cuts. And now we're sitting there being like, hey, you might not have any. I don't know, and it's like, so I just wish
6 was
clarity.
last year. I think we might have been at like maybe 4, but yeah, you're right. Then it went to 3, then it went to 2. We haven't had any yet, and now you're saying they're predicting with it's strange that sometimes the Fed is like rooting against employment because it screws up how they handle inflation. So God, if only there was an immutable coin that could solve a lot of these problems. Oh, that's right, Bitcoin.
There is, and it's at an attractive price right now. So wow, what an interesting environment we find ourselves. But yeah, dude, and it's so annoying because like I wish there was a real gauge on inflation. I think it's just been so fake newsed around in terms of, oh, it's down or it's a 2%. It's like, is it really? Because some of the pricing on things you see, you're just like, dude, that's not normal. That's not day to day as it should be. So I just don't, I'm not trying to vent on that, but I do look at it as an opportunity to be able to kind of have last minute stacking your sats, because there's nothing that, and you've kind of said this before, like Bitcoin does what it does. There's nothing Bitcoin did wrong, to have the price go down recently.
No, Bitcoin doesn't care about what we think of the price and anything. I'm just gonna look at us real quick. Okay, cool. We are totally good. So I just looked at us on Twitter, and we are horizontal like we're supposed to be. Just wanted to do that last double check. You said something earlier I'd like to touch on. If we ever do get bigger and have a much bigger audience, and it seems to be growing quickly, if we do get famous, there's going to be a T-shirt with Disco on it with the quote that he just said earlier, and that was "Giddy is a little schoolgirl." So I'm really glad you're giving yourself like great memes here, and like there's a lot to rally around and to basically use you and hold you hostage for a little blackmail. So that's
that felt as such when it was released. I'm like, did I just say that? Well, go with it, dude. This is
Giddy is a little schoolgirl.
Well, we're trying to be real, and we're trying to, we're trying to be a real voice and not be positioning. So obviously, I could see that come back, and I could see that rearing its head again. In our interactions for sure.
Yeah. So one thing in this show that Disco and I have been, we've only been going like 4 or 5 months now. And we always forget to ask people at the beginning, like if you like the content, basically we start with macro, then with Bitcoin mainly and crypto and maybe some politics and geopolitical and kind of what's going on with regulation. But then, we basically go serious in the front and then party in the back. And then we work our way down to degen. And by the end we're, the news is like 30-40 minutes of the show, and then just depending on how much fuel we have in the tank, we just go into the degen stuff. So we see we're growing pretty quick today. Disco, we're already at 53 eyeballs, so I know those are kind of additive, but it's cool. And anyone, if you're in the video watching and you tap in there and write the question, we can see it on our little handy desktop eCam interface. So ask us anything, and we'd be happy to discuss and answer as long as it's even fairly relevant. So, but welcome everybody, and we love doing this show, and we love doing this show for you guys. So please like it, repost it if you like the content, and all that other begging for engagement stuff, because you know how the algorithms work. We did I think our 3rd or 4th or 5th show was on the X algorithms, and these two old folks. Oh, guess who just posted? Nifty.
Aloha.
When are we retiring from RSICs? Yeah, I got to move that over. Let's make Nifty. Where should we put Nifty? Where should we put this? Like between us. There we go. Like front and center.
Yeah, I like it.
Will we retire from RSICs? I hope so. So we had a insane spaces yesterday. I think we had 3,000 live listeners, and we're already up to like 41 or 4,200. So I think that's our biggest one so far. So pre-halvening, it wasn't just R6. Obviously, the big meme land news was where we started, but we went basically strategies for the halvening. We may do the news right now and then split up, do a separate little special show kind of for YouTube algorithm. We're not going to lie. Like those, like whenever we do little RSIC or specials on the halvening or runes or anything, those like pop, and then our long 2-hour shows get like get put in like the snore closet. So, so you might be seeing a break out of these shows, but appreciate you, Nifty. Yes, we love you too. So everyone else can post. And look, you get your icon up there. Like, how cool is that?
But that is on everyone's mind too. Like you kind of look at this, and I know that you've obviously been through more halvings than I, as this is my first, my native voyage and that. So I can't liken it to anything that I've kind of experienced in my first true cycle, but it did feel like, pre-merge, like the merge had kind of a lot of, implications supposedly, and a lot of mind share. But right now it's like, have you ever felt like this, in terms of there being so much anticipation and like what's coming on the other side? Like did it feel like that in, 2020 or 2016, or no, it was just like, yeah, the supply is going to be cut, and there, like, did it just open up a whole new realm with this whole kind of runification and kind of that the L2 side of it and everything?
Yeah, I mean, this halving is almost like a BC AD. This is the fourth halving, right?
Right.
You got the epic sack coming. So ordinals didn't exist the last halving. I've said
Right.
this, especially in our early shows when we were just kind of figuring everything out, and you and I were figuring out a common language and how to look at this stuff. And I was trying to figure out how to look at like the old 2015 through like 2021 days. And
Right.
like I said, you kind of when it went up and down, I had a couple people I could talk to about it, but for the most part, you would kind of just celebrate and commiserate alone, and that's no fun, right? Like
Right.
that's why all the maxis, like when I look at ordinals communities and now runes, yeah, is runes in general like a big Ponzi? Yeah, 99.999% of it is, but the technology is now there to do a lot of cool stuff, both with art, combining runes and ordinals, and possibly even dexes with stable coins and stuff. Like there's a lot of cool stuff that can be done now that Casey's invented a cleaner system. So
Yeah.
remember, even back 2 3 4 years ago, it was more Ethereum, and the groups were rallied around that. But now we're all back home on the mother chain, and we get to sell. Like I've always, even when I was a full NFT ETH degen, I've always held way more Bitcoin bags, probably my guess is 70-30 Bitcoin to ETH, or even 80-20. And now I've got a little Solana degen, just because like I was FOMOing so hard at all the bonk tokens and all that. I'm like, all right, I might as well just get Solana, because Solana just won't stop going up, of course, until it crashed. And now, but it's still up from when we got it. You were the one, Disco, actually, who was like, maybe, maybe like let's keep an open mind here. Like I'm not buying it because I would ever store art or anything on there, because like I'm not storing something on something that could go down that has so much VC control. But I'll do a little moon bag with some of the stuff. Obviously a little late to the game, but I don't care.
Yeah, it's crazy. I'm looking because it kind of ties into something else I wanted to get into, but it got down to like $11 at in November of 22. So regardless of where, it kind of dipped a little bit with some of the other stuff recently, but that's still a nice run. It's up at 130, about 131 right now.
Yeah, I mean, excuse me, I'm getting over after the spaces yesterday. I took like a 3 hour nap. I was a little under the weather. I actually feel good today. I'm just like, now I'm all hoarse and stuff like that. Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
Yeah.
Solana, obviously, right now, I would say, except for like Binance Chain and stuff like that, which most folks in the US don't really pay attention to or give a crap about. Solana is the number 3 right now. If you talk to Brennan or some of these smart folks in the space, they're like, oh, there are, just wait till like some of this Cosmos stuff launches, or some of these other L1
Yeah.
chains, they could just eat Solana's launch, and it sounds like steal from ETH. But the beauty of Bitcoin, especially as a store of value and money, like, that one's probably not, it's probably not going anywhere,
Yeah. Really quick. So we were looking at last week, we were talking about like the Hong Kong. I'm just going to get back to kind of the macro and
Yeah,
the Bitcoin
totally.
pricing. But, we were talking about the Hong Kong approving, and I guess they did approve earlier this week, but I think that the impact is going to be slightly muted compared to US ETF expectations, because in the beginning, at least, maybe this will change from what I've read, but at least for the first 6 months or so, I guess mainland is not allowed to kind of interface or get involved with that. So it's an exciting thing that we're seeing it open up. And the other kind of key note that I think about with that was, and kind of underreported, underplayed, was Ethereum did get approved for ETFs over there as well. So that was kind of the first time that we've seen
Right.
Ethereum get approved from an ETF perspective. So I don't think that we're going to see, a huge jump because of the ETFs in Hong Kong being approved, but I do think kind of paving the way for the ETH side of it could be something that we look back and be like, oh, that was pretty pivotal, actually.
Yeah, it's a no-brainer. I feel like they kind of wanted to leapfrog us a little. Like the second we
Yeah.
finally approved our ETFs, I feel like Hong Kong's like, go, go, go. And Hong Kong, I don't know everything about the geopolitical stuff. Obviously, there's been a lot of kind of revolt there against mainstream China. I don't know where it netted out. I don't think as much is going on there, but Hong Kong is, I mean, London, New York, Hong Kong are the three big,
Yep.
freest, biggest markets, right? So you got to figure Hong Kong coming in. Like, it's going to be a slow trickle. I mean, Bitcoin's down right now to 60. Like I said, even a couple of weeks ago, if we had skyrocketed and then went down fast, that makes you more nervous. But if it goes up to 60, like it could be 60. You could literally refresh your screen and see 67 again. I'm not saying it will, but like if you play this 2, 3, 5, 6 years out, like it's not even worth looking at every day necessarily. But with Hong Kong,
Yeah.
mainland China, you're right, isn't going to come in right away or ever. But I would think, I don't know, that'll be interesting to see. I know they can't get in right now because of the free market and the, obviously the communist country of China. But it's just, again, it's the second or third biggest stock market in the world. Like, how can you not be bullish?
Yeah. As I say, it's just, you got to embrace the little dips these days. Like the dips are dips are gifts, right? Like we got to figure out how to make that a little sane of some sort, but take advantage of them. And as I'll reference kind of the spaces yesterday. And for those who didn't listen, you can check out the recording, but there were a lot of really, smart folks and some OGs that's chimed in and spoke up. And I think that a lot of them, kind of the message is a message that we've kind of been on, kind of building out and developing, which is, at the end of the day, there's going to be a lot of different shiny toys to get interested in and things to, kind of play around with for, huge jumps and huge ups. But by the same token, we are kind of in a uniquely positive position to be able to still go old school and stack sats. And I think that at the end of the day, you're not going to look back at what you're doing and be upset that you are acquiring more, especially at these lower prices due to the kind of bigger factors at play.
Yeah, I did a campy post this morning because, like I said, with this Twitter algorithm, like it's all about, you got to do 2 posts a day and you got to respond to posts. And I actually enjoy it. I love X and now that I've kind of embraced it and writing longer articles and we found something to rally around, it's been pretty cool. But this morning I just posted, I'm like, hey, there's a new rune that I'm really liking. It's called Sats. It's not the BRC20 pre-rune Sat. It's actually 1/100th millionth of a Bitcoin, and like it's tradable almost everywhere, and it's layer 1 and everything. So obviously being very, and I said, please repost for more quote unquote alpha. And obviously the point is, like, at the end of the day, and it's Scribe said it so eloquently yesterday, like at the end of the day, like, let's have fun with runes. Hopefully, like Nifty said, like with RSIC and maybe Runestone and some of these tiny Vikings, like maybe there is generational wealth. Like, holy crap, we just stumbled onto something huge. I think R6 got one of the best shots. Maybe one of these 1 through 9 KC or non-KC runes, I should say, might do really well. And I hope we all do well. But just stack sats. I mean, and that's the name of the game here. And I don't know what else to say. That should always be the number one. I just would hate to see, because there's a lot of influencers and there are a lot of grifters and there's a lot of runes projects that are so stupid. And one thing I learned from our show yesterday was, are you going to be the guy or girl that be like, oh, I'm going to hedge my bets and go on these 30 different ones? I guess if you're super rich, you've made a mint on degenning on Solana or something, yeah, go for it. And you probably will. It's like VC companies. You bet on a 50 to 100 companies, you get 2 moonshots or 3, even 1 big moonshot, and you've covered those 1,000x. You cut the other ones off and your fund killed it, right? So I think this is the same thing, but I feel like the message yesterday from a lot of people we respect in the space, Aiken and obviously Scribe, and I think Nifty was in there, and all those guys were like, make a couple. I know I'm missing someone really key who had some great stuff yesterday, but they're like, just get a couple, for those of us who don't have big bags, just grab a couple. So Trem, welcome to the show. Looking for a nice way to unbox info, way to start, good resource for these stuffs. And then he does say, I'm talking about runes. So honestly, I mean, I'm biased, but watch the spaces that we do, but follow Scribe. I think it's 1NSC1RIBE. Follow Damon. Follow
Yeah.
Wanzi, B-Ways. There's so many smart folks out there. So, but look out for the spaces through my account, Blutoshi. We do some really cool stuff with runes. And we're not just pump, like get paid to bag pump stuff. We're pretty honest. I don't want to say brutally honest, but we're definitely like, if I'm not buying it, and we're not letting people pay us to convince you to sell your crap. So follow Disco here, follow me, Blutoshi, on X, and you'll see good stuff, because all the people I just mentioned, I try and repost anything I see that's good or it's an aha for me. I'm like, oh, I'm reposting as much as I can to get good information on the timeline, and to filter out, to boost the good stuff and just to ignore the complete garbage that's out there. Because if you follow the wrong people, you will get you're being led by an influencer to buy a bag of shit, and they are going to get Bitcoin for it, aka the sats I was joking about this morning, this new rune, and you are going to get a rune that's going to go to zero quickly or slowly, or maybe it moons, but few will moon and many will go to zero.
Yeah. And one thing that I think is kind of cool, and not to just go on about the spaces or anything like that, but what I think is really cool out of, what's happened from that is you kind of galvanize a community, and you have people, looking, and in the way kind of the white paper was dropped, like you have people almost on, like, not a scavenger hunt, but people kind of working together to take the clues and to see, what's legit. And now, like, the Rune coin is starting to interact more and share more kind of communication, and then people kind of read into, like, oh, that means they kind of got through the heads down part or whatever. But I thought it was really interesting. I think it's a good example, was just seeing where the pooling went from, because that was kind of, yes, it was hinted at, through the Voltaire quotes and everything in the white paper, but it was really kind of left up to the community to come up with something. And I know that out of, the collective, you guys, crafted that proposal, and it's just really cool to see it be acted on, and to actually see the team, put their money where their mouth is in terms of joining the pool. So I know you had a goal of 1%, and we're looking right now, if you're just doing audio, but we're looking at the RSIC page, and you can see that the pooled RSICs is now up to freaking 42%. So kudos to the community and to the team for kind of making that all come to life.
Yeah, this was huge. The goal was actually, because I'm a huge Douglas Adams fan. My son just read the book on, we went on vacation over New Year's, and he read all 5 books, and they're not super long, but he read all 5, which is cool when, as a dad, like when you recommend media, sometimes with your old 80s, 90s movies, they're like, Dad, this is so stupid. But when you hit a home run, he couldn't put it down. So 42 is obviously the answer to everything. So my goal was 42%, because that 42% member, we hold more tickets, because we've been holding longer for the block. So we're at 40, what did I say, Disco? 46 or 47%. We're almost at 50% odds, because we hold more of the tickets. So that's a huge win. Obviously now maybe we do one last push to 50 here, so we'd be like 55. So, the odds are good that we could win 2, dare I say 3 of the pool mechanics, which would be so cool if we did. But I couldn't be happier. Obviously the Runes Collective, Scribe, Damon, and I'm Pepe. I mean, how cool of all the work that they put into it to get us to this point. Like, super fired up, and just from a, like, even if we don't win the pool, like, just obviously I hope we win at least one pool, but bringing everybody together, including the team putting in their 10% of R6, 2,100 R6 of these are the teams. They took us from 16% to 27, like, immediately.
Yeah, no, it put gas on it. Yeah,
which was so cool. And then it just went flying from there. So the fact that the team was behind it, I think it made sense for them to be behind it, because, like, if they had won, like, people would be, even though it's totally legit, they're doing it all on chain. It's way better optics if they win with the group, especially since Voltaire, that's kind of what he preached. So super excited to be a part of that. And yeah, it was fun. And hopefully into having, I mean, I hope RSIC, like, you know, like I said, usually we degen party at the end, but hopefully RSIC is rune number 1. I mean, that would be absolutely insane, you know, but even if it's rune 2, 3, 4, 5 through 9, whichever it is, I would assume when it starts trading, people are going to go nuts. I'm in no rush to dump those. I might even look and, you know, try and use one of these new like runes snipe tools that are coming out like Nuke to maybe even get in and get more, or see what else in the 1 through 9 runes world is popping. I think that's going to be the first meta for Friday night at the Halving. But after that, like, think about it. Like, we're at 13 letters. Like, if I could think of something that's not cool, it's a 13 letter anything. Like, obviously they'll be interesting and everyone's got the same limitation, but just like, to me, like 7 or 8 letters, and when it starts to get really interesting, because you can get one words that are very, you know, now everything. So runes, that's 5 letters. So everything will probably say something runes, right? So there's to get to your 13. But I think when you get to 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, and obviously 1, you know, it'll be interesting if the rune meta just keeps lifting at each time over the next 4 years as each progressive letter amount. So 12 will be in a couple months, then 11 letters. As they open up, it'll be interesting to see how the market reacts and what ingenuity and innovation comes from new runes to capture people's attention. Because, you know, people are going to fly from one to the other, and some people are going to make Jenny wealth and some people are going to get wrecked. So
yeah, as like we said before, we're going to see a little bit of a runes reckoning, you know, in the next couple of days, and we'll see, you know, how everything's going to shake out from that perspective. It's kind of funny, like if a seed phrase, say someone had like a 12-word seed phrase, you could almost play around with that for the longer rune.
Yeah, absolutely. So here's a question from RT96. Awesome show, guys. What do you think about Merlin chain and its potential? I have not done any research on Merlin chain. I have heard of it, but that's about it. So maybe it's something we'll look into. If you have any thoughts, post them here. But it's
sure.
not one I know about, but I appreciate you listening, RT96.
Yeah, I'll make a note. We should definitely dig into that and take a little look at that.
So
any other?
Yeah, Tall Crypto, who's one of our favorites in the space. So he did a whole what you can expect to win per raffle ticket based on a 5, 4, 3, and 2% one win. Definitely follow Tall Crypto. But coffee for 3,000 sats, absolutely. But Tall has had great info in the space and has done some good math for us, so we can see what it actually means to win. You know, because game theory would say, you know, with the surplus, you know, you get the surplus, so you could have sold before, but now with meme land and they're doing the staking for 2% of the supply, it's opening it to a whole wider swath of people. So it's just I don't know.
Yeah, I love Tall's take on it being, you know, essentially we get it to the point where, you know, however many, what are there going to be, 5 raffles? It's like, so we get to do heads or tails for 5 different ones, and you know the odds of that when you start looking at it from, you know, who gets the ball in a football game or something, you'd like to have half a chance, you know. So that's certainly kind of the realization that came with getting the numbers up to where they are. So not to shill it, but if you haven't pooled yet, one thing that's interesting that I saw today that I think Damon put together was, now if you go to Ordiscan, you can, where you know, kind of check your rune allocation. Now there's a little button or sticker on the RSIC tab that shows if you've been pooled or not. So I know some people with your people had questions where to kind of check that. And I know we were going before through the thing, but now you can see there's a little tab next to the boost that indicates if it's pooled or not. So that's kind of cool. Go.
So there's the pooled button, there's the boosted button, and there's the pooled button. And I just told everybody how many how many coins I have, but I'm excited. And then the surplus, that
Yeah.
should bring it to 7, could get to 10 with with if we win a couple of those. So definitely no whale by any means. The whale chat, it sounds like maybe get in as an honorary, but like I said, that either way, I'm fine. And I'm just, it's fun to do this. Just happy to be here to kind of facilitate this stuff. And I think the kumbaya yesterday, and it's come up many times. It's like, so, it's like when it's just ordinals, every collection's like, yours is the worst, mine's the best. And this allows you to transcend it because there's so many groups who are into it. Now there are obviously collections who do FUD it, who aren't into it, but like they said, they had a choice to go in or out, and there's plenty of runes out there. So, everyone's got freedom to choose whatever they want.
Yeah. So what's kind of just the top line on the Epic Sat? Like, how do you think that is looking to kind of get played out, or what are we kind of looking for from that in the beginning?
Yeah. So that Epic Sat. So an Epic Sat is the first Satoshi. So remember, there's 100 million Satoshis per Bitcoin. The first one after the halving is the Epic Sat. So rare Sats are the first Sat after a difficulty adjustment period. So every 2 weeks. So there's about 400 of those. And remember, you're inscribing art and stuff or runes or whatever on these rare Sats. Well, the Epic Sat is nothing less than epic. There are only 3 others in existence. None, as far as I know, have been sequestered and are ready to be rolled out for anything. My gut would be 20 to 30 plus Bitcoin. I don't know.
Yeah.
It's a lot, right?
Yeah, no, I'm fascinated by it, but I don't have a frame of reference, and I guess I'm not alone in that because it's pretty uncharted, in terms of as you say, the scarcity of that. If you're talking about like 3 to 4 total, like that's
total,
insane. That's
yeah.
insane.
And there's only going to be, it's every 4 years. So in total, what is that? In 2140, so in about 100 plus years. So that's 25 in the next 100 plus years, and we've got 4. So there's going to be like 30 total ever. And you got to wait every 4 years. So, I mean, you could do like on an Epic Sat would be like Banksy, or I mean, I don't even know who could go on an Epic Sat. Like, it's so cool, so rare. But there's actually I have a tweet, because I got to do my 2 tweets a day to feed the algorithm. I've got one coming out at in an hour from now at 2:22. That's basically like just like RSIC, kind of giving a plug to RSIC, but the miners, the big miners, you might as well increase your odds and take less of a take. It's just good business. Like if you can get like 33% of the network or whatever, I hate that miners would be that concentrated. I would root for the little guy to get it, obviously, but if I could aggregate a big group of miners, be like, let's all just throw as much hash power, and however much hash power you're throwing at it, you get that percentage, just like we did with a raffle ticket. So I don't see why it'd be any different. I mean, I guess if it's 10 Bitcoin, that maybe to them it's not a big deal, especially if you're having to split that among 5 miners or something. But if it's 10, 20 or 30 Bitcoin, it's just another, it's just more revenue that you're getting on something, whether you believe in it or not. And we know Ocean's not gonna give 2 craps about that Epic Sat or anything. Maybe, nor would I think they'd care. Like if you said, what would you rather win, like the 2 blocks behind it or win that block? They'd be like, the 2 blocks behind it for double the rewards. You'd be like, okay, interesting.
Yeah.
And obviously we'd be like, no, I'd win that one and then sell the, because the reward's going to go to 3.125 Bitcoin from 6.25 Bitcoin right now. So that Epic Sat will go for, like I said, the plus minus, I'd say I'd go 25 Bitcoin.
Yeah.
If not 30, 35. I mean, the parrot, the little funky head parrot went for 24 Bitcoin, so the Epic Sat to me, and that's inscription, I believe 2, or is it 1? It's the Dick Butts one. So it's Casey Skulls 0, Dick Butts 1. I think the Parrots 2. So it's the third one.
Third, yeah.
Yeah, and it went for 24 Bitcoin. So the Epic Sat, because remember, there's people who have had Bitcoin a long time, like Brendan was talking, like, and I used to just give it away from the fountain just so we could learn how to use it and stuff. So there's people who are getting in the space who have a lot of Bitcoin, and if that Epic Sat means anything to them, they'll be like, hell yeah, I'll spend 40 Bitcoin. Like, I'll take that thing for sure. I mean, it's an Epic Sat.
It's pretty incredible to kind of wrap your head around that. And it goes back to, just different. And we welcome everybody with this show, and we're trying to kind of represent different cycles and people with different, varied experience and everything. But, you're right. The perspective of someone who could, who could part ways with that and feel like, it's worth it for that. There's a lot of people out there. So it's going to be fascinating to watch. We should do an over under on it.
Yeah, it's funny. After we did our show last week, Disco, so many people were like, "Nifty, awesome show! Like you and Blutoshi are the best." I'm like, "It's Disco," but Nifty gets his PFP on here about 63 times a show because he asks all the all the good questions. So I'll put it back up there. But he just had a really good tweet. Follow Nifty, everyone, if you haven't. But he did a great, and I know that's not even why he does this. He just loves the show and he's just a good dude. But he said, "What do you think of the 10 billion extracted?" So Ordi, Sats, BRC20s on Bitcoin, and then you got Dogecoin and SHIB in the last 7 days. 10 billion have gone from there, I believe, to the mother chain on Bitcoin. So I assume money is prepped and ready for meme coin season on Bitcoin. So 10 billion's a lot. Obviously, the whole marketplace has shed a lot of money. I mean, I don't know what Bitcoin shed in the last week at 60,000, but it's way more than 10 billion. So I don't know if part of that's the price going down, but I know Solana degens are here for Bitcoin memes, and the meme coins, and they're probably better at knowing when to push that button and when not to than a lot of we native Bitcoiners are. So this is going to be interesting. Just covering this is going to be interesting. My goal is to stack sats and to dabble a little and not get wrecked, but I've never been super aggressive with that stuff because I always feel like it's like I went to the casino with Disco in Nevada when I was 22 years old. Like, we were working in a restaurant in a ski town. We were making no money. I grabbed like no money. Like, we were living paycheck to paycheck, but we snowboarded every day and worked our asses off at night. And we drove the 6, 7, 8 hours to Nevada. I think we even drove home that night too. Maybe it probably wasn't 7 or 8 hours, but it was a little while. It was in Reno. And I remember I had like $400 or $500, which to me was like everything in my savings. I'm like, I'm not going to lose any more than that. I wore a tie and a shirt thinking that would like make me feel more debonair. And I'm a good gambler, like with Texas Hold'em. Like when it's friends around a table, I'm pretty good. Like, I'm not great and I'm rusty now, but I'm pretty good. Yeah, when you play against Vegas, Vegas doesn't care. Like, they're going to get you,
Yeah.
I lost that money in 5 minutes. 5 minutes.
Yeah, and let's just say where we went was not Vegas. Like, it was jackpot. And
I thought it was Reno. Is that same thing?
No, Reno's like, Tahoe. So we didn't go there.
Oh, we did. You're right. It was jackpot. So you're saying this was like right over the border, that northern border, and it was just the dregs of like.
Yeah, it was a truck stop casino. You know what I mean? Like, that's essentially what it was. And it's good for what it is and everything like that. I know I pretty much stayed in the car because I didn't have too many pennies to waste. So I thought we'd get the free drinks, and we didn't really end up getting that. And I was like, I don't know what we're doing here.
If you're not actively losing, they're not actively feeding you with drinks. So it was like a lose-lose. And I just remember walking out of there with my tie still perfectly tight and the top button, and my neck choking. And I'm like, I am such a douchebag. Like, I just lost everything I had. Like, I could have had a nice dinner or saved it or whatever, or bought a new snowboard or something. But I just felt like such a jackass. And like I said, I've never been a gambler, like on the Vegas side. I'm sure there's books you can read to be smarter about that, but no thanks.
Well, you've also said I don't think it's I don't think I'm breaking any news, but you have said a few times, that if you had just held, for since the beginning, and didn't necessarily divert into other things, you probably would be in the same, if not slightly better position. But then again, I wouldn't trade, like, I feel, and this is, I'm not trying to be just an RSIC pony or anything like that, but I wouldn't trade just kind of, it's almost like reading a book and discovering new chapters almost every day since it got dropped in January. So I almost feel like the people that haven't gone on the journey kind of miss some really engaging free content and entertainment, and it really did do an incredible job of capturing the imagination. So I don't, my handle is freaking disco, hold, and not to tell everyone my
Hodl.
playbook, but I'm a hodl guy, and I feel like the price of admission, to get a couple R6 and boost them and be on this ride has already been very fulfilling for me. So just being able to kind of wait, hey dude, what just came out on it, and being involved in that and tapped into it and being part of those spaces as a fly on the wall and kind of just learning as it goes, like I wouldn't trade that for anything. So I hope that after the halving there's some more interesting content, and that's one of the things that this space has taught me in the short period of time is, don't worry, there's going to be some more entertaining and engaging stuff that's going to come to light. So
Yeah, and beyond
on that.
Oh, sorry, Disco.
No, please, no.
But beyond the entertaining side, yeah, like obviously with runes and R6, like is degen as this is, we're also seeing new technology, like the tracks getting laid as the train is kind of rolling along. But think about the other side of it too. Like I know art is not in the focus right now, but like, I've got a Lemon Haze and an Otto, and Otto obviously did the RSIC pooling token, which was perfect. It was absolutely perfect. So that's like kind of a keepsake, and it was free, which was super cool. But like Nathan Corns, like I've met all these super cool artists, and it's just been so neat to see, like, to learn about them and to get to know them. And I think Brendan said it best. Like, this is the first place, like when you're kind of like a rare art collector, which I've got some cool art, and I know Disco has dabbled in there too, but we're not like these elite rare art collectors at all. We just put stuff on our walls that's cool, and some of it's from more prominent folks. But obviously there's a whole like super elite wealthy art scene that, obviously you and I are not a part of, but you don't really get to know your artists. And to put art on an immutable blockchain, to me, like, if more and more artists aren't coming here, then it's like, what are you even thinking? Like, you get to, and maybe some artists are so tormented that they don't want to meet their holders, but everyone I've met has been like, hey, like, I want to meet you in New York. I want to, like, and that has been, and I didn't make it to New York, so I haven't met Daresh yet, but like I collected one of his Genesis pieces on, he's from Japan, and he does these beautiful pictures of and videos of like surveillance cameras and these beautiful lights, and he slows them down, but such cool stuff. And I never would have gotten to know any of these people. Lemon Haze loves Disco. You'll love this. He loves Air and Moon Safari, the French band. Like, we talked about that for a while. And then all of a sudden, like, all the song names serendipitously were like coming at us for like a day in crypto. So we shared this little like obscure from one of our favorite albums, which is a French band named Air. The album's Moon Safari from the early 1990s or maybe mid 1990s. And, I never would have had that. Like, I would enjoy the art for art's sake. I'd read about the artist and feel a connection that way. But I actually now get to reach out to the artists and maybe even give feedback, whether they want it or not, or just freaking talk. It's awesome.
Well, what's also cool, it's two-way, right? So you can definitely give, praise and feedback and have conversations. But like, I'm collecting a artist, a photographer from Tokyo named Mag, and he's done some really cool stuff and kind of early on Bitcoin. And I love it when I get like a DM. He's like, hey, Disco, check this out. I'm working on this. Like, it's fun to, have that kind of escape and to tell my wife, like, hold on, I'm communicating with my friend who's in Tokyo and he's about to drop something. Like, it's dope. And it's not something that, we kind of had that line of access to. And I think I think art will probably be, a fun place to focus, post the rune reckoning. And I would be, surprised if art didn't really kind of have a big kind of presence moving forward, because it's the fact that it can be inscribed on chain, like all those things we've talked about 100 times. But I do agree with you that I would challenge most artists that haven't dabbled in this to get involved, because I do think it really lends itself to just incredible, staying power and,
Right.
all the new ways that you can express things. So it's pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and if you do, come find us, because we have connections and we can help any new artists out big time. And we've been talking to Intrepid. He did a collection here. But yeah, I love this. I mean, if you're going to bring Mag up, I might as well just take a look at it. But like, these fragments are so cool on Bitcoin. Remember, especially if the mempool fees are super high, it costs a lot of money. Like, photographers kind of have it's a little harder for them. The generative artists can do code, which can be very small in size. So to the cost to inscribe it can be pretty inexpensive. But if you're putting a picture up, like, you have to make decisions on how high res you want it to be versus compression. So what a lot of cool photographers are doing is making these very monochromatic or two color dual color images that are just so cool. So there's so much cool stuff out there. But yeah, I totally forgot you had gotten in with Mag. There's the guys I named are some of the biggest in the business, but there's so many cool ones who've come in, carved out a little niche, and you form a relationship, and it's just it's super exciting.
Yeah, and you're starting to see, which is encouraging, you're starting to see, Bitcoin projects, get in the top tens of the market caps with the NFT. Like, you really are starting to see that, aside from just the rune action. But you're starting to see, like, when you look at it, you're seeing the puppets are, top 5 overall. And it's just so I'm not a speculator, but I just think that you can read the room into what's happening. And once you showed me before, you made the analogy way back in the day of, it being checkers versus like Star Wars chess, and I do think that we're just sitting down to breakfast in terms of the capabilities and the outputs that we're going to see over the next, handful of months into years.
That's Star Trek chess. Star Wars chess was made famous by Chewie on the Millennium Falcon when he threatened, was it C-3PO or R2-D2? Yeah, C-3PO was like, dude, don't lose to a Wookiee.
Don't mess with Chewie. Yeah.
So that's more of the chess where the big fuzzy woolly mammoth like eats the other guy as in that round table. But Star Trek 3D chess is literally like things here on this board, but then you move it here and then here, and you kind of go up this thing. It makes, like, they actually sold the things. It made no sense, but it was like chess, which is a hard enough game as it is. But then you've got this multi-level, multi-dimensional aspect to it, and that is Ordinals with all the stuff. Chain Left, the awesome artist at Cass Rhodes, and I think this is still consensus, is that with Ethereum, smart contracts, and EVM and all that stuff, the stuff you can do on chain is still more robust on ETH. But I guess the limitations of what you can do on Bitcoin and the fact that everything is on chain, except for people who are doing these reveals now. Like, I don't love that people on Ordinals are doing like reveals and actually like having to, like you're doing this recursion or something where it pings another sat for what the reveal is. I don't like that at all. Like, I want it to be immutable. I don't want anyone to be able to change that.
Yeah, that's kind of the big selling point, is that. And, that's one of the things that I think we learned from, I don't want to say it was Ethereum's, ETH NFTs, time on top or whatever, but that was definitely one of the key takeaways, is now people are looking at, where things are stored and how secure they are and how, truly, non-fungible that they actually are. And I think that was one of the big takeaways that came out of kind of that last run, because it was kind of the promise, at least to me as a newcomer, I was like, oh, well, I'll have this forever and it can never go away. And, that's kind of what makes it different than things. And then when you kind of realize there's a little bit of a fake facade on a bit of that, that kind of crumbled it a bit. And I think that was part of why some of the, forward thinking people just got so incredibly bullish and early on ordinals from just an output and just, knowing that you're going to have that lasting footprint forever. And it's completely immutable.
Absolutely. Yeah. The more you learn about IPFS and even, what's the other one? That Solana always uses, I'll think of
Filecoin
or no. That IPFS comes with Filecoin. It's got a cool name, but we'll think of it. But the more you have this off-chain storage of on-chain contracts, like the more you're like, if you stop paying the bills, which happened with a little ape-like collection, I'm not talking about Bored Apes at all, but some little teeny crappy derivative collection on Ethereum. Once they stopped paying Pinata, they unpinned it on IPFS, and the images were actually missing. So they're spending $600,000 or whatever on some of these images, or with Azuki, tens of thousands of dollars. And the company ever disbands, I have a feeling Azuki probably be around for a while, or they'll get bought out. That IP is pretty strong, so somebody will have it and keep paying that Pinata bill, but it's not a guarantee. So that's a high price, whereas everything on Ordinals is just on chain. So I know the beginning of our show was all about learning about decentralization and where NFTs are stored, and that's just as Ordinals was getting bigger and bigger last year, and it's been kind of a natural. Like it almost looking back, we're like, God, it was so obvious how we migrated. Like, I had already gone to Bitcoin at early days of Ordinals last year, but there was kind of a dead spot last summer where it was probably back at ETH and stuff like that, and Ordinals weren't as big. But then last fall, Ordinals just took off, and it was like perfect timing with kind of our show and what we were doing and the direction we went. But we had to go back to look at what our assumptions were to kind of harden our investment thesis on, like, if I'm already taking a gamble of buying art on Bitcoin or Ethereum or whatever, like, it better be on chain, fully immutable as long as the chain lasts, which is crazy if you think about it. Bitcoin lasts hundreds of years into our civilization has evolved. We're all going to be long gone, but we're all super early here. Maybe even under 100 million inscriptions one day will be like, that's 98 million. That's a pretty cool one. I don't know, but we'll see.
Olden times, it'll be a whole thing.
So we got Keith up here. We got to give Keith a huge shout out. So Keith, appreciate you for he hit it before I did. He's like, hey, this whale chat, you better put Scribe Blutoshi, because we don't hold 21 R6. We hold a decent amount compared to most, but I'm not even close to 21. And Keith did a big push to get us in this whale chat. Like I said, I'd be grateful if I was in it, and if they decide not to, I'd be okay with that too. I just love being in the space. But Keith's been awesome and a listener of the show and huge contributor to really the narrative and memes of the R6 space, but really the greater space. So Keith, appreciate you and appreciate you popping up on the show. Anyone who wants to reply to anything, we're going to up our, at the beginning of the show, Disc and I were talking, we're going to up the whole kind of look here. We're going to make it more like, not that anyone watches TV anymore, but we're going to try and go a little more professional, kind of have fun with it and stuff like that. But right now I got this generic ticker that I figured out, but we're going to get, more like live tickers and stuff. But if you go into the actual thing and you're watching the show, it's not in the comments, we realized. It's actually in the show. Like, you have to have it open. You can actually post, and then we can put you up here with your questions or anything like that. So Keith, appreciate you. And anyone wants to ask a question that's kind of pertinent to what we're doing, we're kind of experimenting with live Twitter. Now we're going horizontal, which I think that's going to be the call, but we'll see.
I think so.
We're at 238 now, and maybe because we're kind of growing and we had a great spaces yesterday, that obviously probably helped, but maybe going horizontal helped too. I don't know.
Yeah. Yeah. So going back kind of to the, I think it was Nifty's question, this kind of looks like liquidity moving in and everything like that. You kind of do take a little bit of a look back at, an old thing called OpenSea and kind of see how things are, how that looks. Isn't that weird how that used to be like, oh, I got to check it all the time. And then you're like, it's not even really a predictive in your browser necessarily, but there has been some talk just about, where Bored Ape Yacht Club is overall from a floor perspective and where that's all going to end up. So I think that there was some squawking, yesterday or a couple days ago about it being in the tens, but I think it recovered. Yeah. If I saw up there, it recovered up into about 11.69. So they held the line there, it looks like. But again, that's kind of just a sign of, this mind share and of what's going on. So it's kind of an interesting moment in time to see that.
I thought it went oh, you know what? It was Blur that it went below 10. It looks like, because OpenSea, honestly, I don't think many people are buying on OpenSea anymore. I just don't like Blur.
Yeah.
I'm not. We're not gonna get in the royalty thing here with Bitcoin. You open or Magic Eden gets their 2.5%, but the creators don't, and I haven't heard any gripes from the creators. They just keep making art, and and I'm not saying that wouldn't be awesome. We're working on a project. It's going to be coming a while from now. We're just kind of planting the seeds now. We've got some cool things that we'll share when we're ready, but of course, I'd love royalties, a little annuity, and have people trade it, not have to do anything. But I don't know, some of these are high ticket item stuff, and obviously Azuki and Yuga's going to want that because that sustains a business very healthily, but you kind of knew where it was going. So you got Mutant Apes at 1.77. That's kind of an ouch. And then why don't I see Bored Apes on here? This shows you how often I go. Where the hell's Bored Apes? Oh my god, I thought Azuki was at 0.38. Yeah, that's strange. All right, let's just type it in.
Azuki is like 3.99, I think.
Azuki is?
Yeah.
There it is, 374. So that's not.
Oh, wow.
That's not a good look either. But that's just that little thing I was talking about, like the burning on the stake of the sacrificial Azuki. Kind of like I'm not. Well, whatever. That's all I'll say.
Dude, we have yeah. We've got so many spoilers on things that are in the early in the early stages, and it's almost like it's tough for us to manage our own mind share because there's just so many different cool things to build and to get involved with, and that kind of goes back to what I was saying before. It's just like it's inspiring if nothing else. Yeah, that's crazy. So what's that say for the floor on there?
I'm just looking. It's 11.069 right now, but they were selling is in the last day in the tens. I don't see any sales at 9, so maybe I thought it went under 10, but maybe it's at 10. I mean, it's hovering. I mean, and who knows? I'm not rooting against Bored Apes. Someone did make a post this morning. They're like in Ordinals summer, which it's true, we're in spring, but we're certainly heading to summer. In Ordinals Runes summer, when you see Bored Apes and especially Mutant Apes, no judgment or shade, but it's definitely okay, bold. It's not, and maybe being the flavor of the month, for people who are into that community, good for them and sticking with it and having a really core group of friends and sticking with it. But, it feels like kind of the baton has been passed, but, so seeing them on there is definitely okay. I think Bless is the one who made the comment, but so it's interesting, and again, it just to me feels like kind of not that Yuga's smart. Yuga probably, I mean, think about this. Yuga probably has a rune somewhere out there, right? Maybe they don't, but if they don't, they're probably working on something. But on the ETH side, they've probably had 15 to 17 different drops. Obviously it's all about Coda on the other side, but you can't, I mean, how much dilution can you possibly, you can't focus on it all. So is it going to be Codas and other side, or is it going to be Bored Apes? Because you can't, it's almost impossible right now to support 30, 40, 50,000 things unless the same people
Dude,
are
I have
collecting 17 each.
dude, I have two kids and I can't even figure out how to give them enough attention, like which one's gets which. So you start looking at that family tree, it's freaking crazy. Um, just to be able to see what you're focusing on and where it goes. And I have a random question for you I thought about. Um, do you, in your experience, do we get like a slowdown in the summer in terms of activity? Like, is this just madness because it's like winter into kind of spring, summer, and we have the halving and stuff? Or do you anticipate like it just being as kind of full tilt all the way through? Like, is it just nonstop from here on out? Or do you think there'll be a little summertime lull?
I mean, for us with families and vacations, probably I'm always less degen in the summer than I am in
Yeah.
the winter personally. And I know you probably are too.
Yeah.
But, DeFi summer, which I came in the tail end of that when, like with some of that stuff in ETH, which I don't know, was that 2021, whatever summer that was, like it was truly the summer, and then everyone tried to label what each next summer was, and they were always wrong what
Right.
it was.
That's what I was confused
Always,
about.
always wrong. But this does
Okay.
feel like Rune's summer. It's certainly Rune's late spring, right? So, or no, I guess just spring. But I don't know.
Yeah.
That's a good question. Like
Yeah.
it depends if the innovations with runes and the drops get more and more. Like I will say, like seeing more PFP collections, like I've got a lot of old PFPs like the Ordinal Punks and the Shrooms, and the Shroom guys just do such a good job of getting so many allow lists, and obviously everyone wants to give like OGs stuff, and I'm like, I can't even keep up. I'm sure I'm gonna miss a bunch, but like unless someone
Right.
else like a Stephen Miller, who's one of my favorite like art, I want to say art critic, but like art curator, like I don't even know.
Connoisseur
Yeah,
or
he's a key opinion leader of the art world. So if you're not following Stephen Miller, definitely do. The guy is so smart, and he understands generative art like 6 ways till
yeah.
Sunday. I'm like, he's the guy. I'm getting more and more into it, and I'm like, am I thinking of this right? Am I using the right terms? And he's just like, yeah, you're totally on the right track. And I know right now, a big shout out to am I gonna get the name wrong? I think it's Harvey Rayner. And I should know this on the tip of my tongue, but Harvey Rayner, he has a crazy collection coming out. He's a generative artist, but it's a total degen PFP, but like the eyes, everything is written in code. So that, whereas CryptoPunks,
Oh yeah, that's
there's a
awesome.
name for it, like the CryptoPunk, you've got the hat and the glasses, and you think about it just like almost making a Nintendo Me, like where you're swooping, be like, that tall, skinny guy kind of looks like me, an old Irish or English bloke, I should say. But he wrote it all programmatically with code, and it's pure degen, like abstract art. And apparently there's going to be 1,000 in phase one. I'm on the allow list for one of them, and I'm not getting paid to say this. It just dawned on me, like, and if we can get you on Disco, we should. But Harvey Rayner is like, he's a part of the early art blocks era. I cannot remember which collection it was, but the guy is just a legend. And the fact that he's doing this, I heard his mint's only going to be $100 or a couple $100, which would just be so cool. Like he asked Degens, like in his Discord, like he wanted to immerse himself in the Degen community. Obviously he's already been on the ETH side for years, but he's like, what traits do you have to have? And I'm sure Hoodie came up, and the different kind of
Yeah,
eyes and smirks and like that. But that's one, I don't know when it is. It's coming soon, but I cannot wait for it.
that's awesome. Yeah, that's super cool. Hey, I have a random follow up that I'm just going to throw out there
Sure.
because it's good news for me, and there was a lot of other people that kind of got impacted. But just yesterday, the judges officially approved the Genesis bankruptcy
Oh,
reallocation or whatever it is. So everyone who had money locked up in Gemini earned since November 16th of 2022 can expect a 97% payout in kind by late May to early June, trailed by the other 3% over about a 9-month period. But what's remarkable about it, and it kind of goes back to my handle, was I have some Bitcoin in there that, I haven't been able to touch. And at the time of the lockup, which was November 16th, Bitcoin was at 16,884. So it kind of played out well. And we had that kind of fear of, are they going to go USD or the underlying asset? And I guess the good thing is they went underlying asset, and those guys did just step in, didn't they? And partner with McCormack for that team.
Yeah.
And now I can certainly copy you and rock a jersey, but I just wanted to give that kind of great news that worked out for everybody who got kind of screwed and sat on forced to the sideline for months and months and months. And you kind of just had to have hope that you kind of always had a little bit of a suspicion like that the Twins would probably end up trying to see it through and do the right thing and not rug. But it's pretty awesome just as a feel good thing to see that come through. And I saw it officially on their website, and that was approved yesterday. So for any of those people that kind of went through what I did, where you had some money kind of locked away, it ended up in a weird way being a blessing, because you're going from having Bitcoin at almost 17,000 up to the 60s. So kind of a nice little story
crazy.
there.
And the that's the Winklevi twins, right? The Harvard rowers who were the ones who
Facebook
gave the idea for Mark Zuckerberg to do Facebook, allegedly, right? And then but I think he had to pay them out 100 million. It was a chunk, but it wasn't nearly even then what it was worth, probably. But he paid them to go away. They invested a lot in Bitcoin. It became worth billions. So, I mean, it's a pretty cool story. I mean, these guys are, let's be honest, they're total chads. They're like the true definition, except for that chisel faced guy. You're like, okay, the guys were like Harvard rower guys. It's like that old blood, but they're smart guys, and I'm glad that they made you and the Gemini folks hold. I know I made fun of it a lot because I never had anything in Gemini or anything like that. But, I do listen to Peter McCormack a lot. While he's not a big Ordinals fan, I think that take kind of, even though I wouldn't even call him a maxi, it kind of puts him in the maxi camp, because it's like, that they're just worried about fees and the rest of the world. And I agree with them, but we need layer twos anyway, because the rest of the world is buying like USDT on Tron because they want a stabler coin than their local coin with fees that are dirt cheap, because they're probably putting in $2, $3, $5, $7 at a time, and they can't have a $2, $3, $5, $7 fee burned on top of that, or they're netting way down. Whereas people like us, who have a $3 transaction fee for Bitcoin, are like, seems fair, seems reasonable, right? But yeah, this is cool. And Peter's the football team over there, aka soccer for us US guys, it's pretty cool. I got this practice jersey, and like I said, even though he's not into ordinals, which we are heavily into, I do agree with a lot of his kind of takes that Bitcoin is immutable money, and I love the decentralization of it, and making better all the systems, especially the financial system that needs an overhaul, and all the guys who have their third homes in the Hamptons, who are these market makers who literally are like Visa toll takers in the middle of your credit card transactions at 2.5%. Like, I think those days need to end where we can all be pooled market makers. Like, there's so many things about DeFi that work really well. Obviously some regulation, so it's not pure degeneracy scams, people running off with money. Doesn't happen, but we're in need of an upgrade.
100%. And we're starting to see, just to kind of tail, last week's show, we were doing kind of just, fresh off the plane recap from the Bitcoin policy summit. And, our heads were kind of spinning with all that sort of stuff. But there is a little bit of news related to that came out this week. Actually, today, it looks like Senator Loomis and Gillibrand, who's New York, have a new stablecoin legislative bill that's out there, and it looks like it's going to be pretty well received, and it'd be kind of the first step of seeing, kind of bipartisan, some form of regulation. I don't think it's going to be a big, game changing thing, but when we start seeing some of that infiltrate and see that kind of manifest, like, I think ultimately that's kind of a bullish sign.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Cynthia Loomis, we definitely trust.
Standing ovation.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. At the Bitcoin,
Yeah.
whatever that conference I've got right there, the Bitcoin Policy Summit, like she came up and there was like there was 3 senators and maybe like 4 or 5 or 6 Congress people. Like there were so many senators and Congress people that they actually, a lot of them got relegated to like, just you're on a panel. Like I haven't heard of you. You're not, which is kind of cool.
They didn't get fireside.
Yeah. The firesides that's an interesting thing. I guess it's better to have someone on stage so they're not just talking to you. It's more, I guess that's more of an intimate feel. I'm sure it's like they have a wing man or wing woman to go up there, but she's the headliner of the whole thing because she's been in it the longest. She's got Custodia that's been just screwed over by the Fed after the Kansas City Fed was like, oh yeah, you're totally good. And the fact that you 1-to-1 hold the money that comes in, like you're not even trying to leverage that. And, the Fed didn't like that, which it's like, you'd think be like, wait, leveraging you're pro leveraging stuff. But of course that's how the debt system, in the world works. Like that's why we're 3-4 trillion in debt and printing more and more money. So,
let's just print some more money. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
No. So the 3 points on that, bill, just to, put a bow on it, was that it will prohibit unbacked algorithmic stablecoins, require 100% 1-to-1 backing with cash or equivalents, and implement an anti-money laundering framework. So hopefully just having that money laundering could settle down. A Massachusetts senator who likes to use that as a opportunity to just completely demonize everything from a cryptocurrency perspective.
Yeah, I mean, really, we're just hoping that Elizabeth Warren, it becomes political suicide to just go head on and try and shut crypto down rather than working with crypto. So I'd have to look at that bill, but the more regulation, obviously it makes you scary, but Cynthia Loomis, I mean, if you're going to trust someone right now, she would be the one, right?
Yep. Agreed. What else do we want to talk about?
I mean, I guess that Azuki, like, we haven't gone back to ETH in a while, but Azuki dropped a trailer. I came from my degenning time in ETH, the probably my most profitable and probably the most fun, and the people I gelled with the most were the Azuki folks. And they did the elemental drop. It was a disaster, but I feel like I say that every 6th episode. It's like nothing's new here. Azuki's at like 3.74 ETH. I still hold one really because it's the first one I ever got, and it was my PFP for like a year, so it's probably stupid sentimental reasons. But they just came out with a trailer. They've partnered with some pretty big names. And the trailer, I didn't see any Azuki characters in there, but I guess the full length is coming out in April. It's 17 or 16 minutes, so not a full length, but I guess if you look at like an episode of a show with commercials, like, man, you're probably pretty close, right? 20 minutes, but animation takes a while.
Sitcoms were always 22 minutes.
Yeah, I mean, the trailer looked very interesting and compelling. It's funny, like I love the Azuki art. I don't know if I ever would have considered myself, like I'm too old for the whole anime explosion with Cowboy Bebop and that whole generation. Like Disco and I were obviously this is different, but we were Speed Racer. Yeah. And Johnny Quest and like, and that's a kind of a different genre, but it was the early signs. But Speed Racer was like, we had very few choices in the 70s and 80s to watch shows, probably late 70s or early 80s. But Speed Racer, when that came on, you were like, I'm going to be happy for a half hour. Johnny Quest. Johnny Quest was okay. It was I think it was probably same animators, like real choppy animation, but it's pretty awesome. So anyway, the trailer looked cool. I hope it does well for him. I didn't see any actually Azuki in there. I'm really curious how the Azuki will look. I assume they'll put a couple spirits in there. Like we'll finally see what a spirit means and maybe a red and a blue. But I'm hoping the animation on the animation was very what you would expect from an animation, like the characters, but they didn't look Azuki like. So I assume they were hiding the Azuki from us. I don't know. Like if it looked
Yeah.
totally different, it would be a little strange. So I'm just expecting we'll see super cool Azuki doing cool stuff. And like I said, I've been very critical of Azuki, but I've been pretty honest and fair. And I actually had a meeting after yours not in mind, that the reason that kicked this whole thing off, we went last summer to the Azuki party in Vegas. You and I, like, we weren't going to all the pool parties and everything. We were just the flies on the wall. I got to connect with a lot of my fellow Sensibeans and stuff, but we had a great time. And I think it opened your eyes to like, oh wow, like there are communities here. Like you and I were, again, the Muppets and the was it Stadler and Waldorf and Stadler, and we were
Waldorf.
just taking notes, and like this was cool, and the homegrown Azuki music was super cool, and obviously we're rooting for them. But the band that played, like, I asked you, I'm like, is this like as good as it gets house music? You're like, no, it's pretty standard. And that other kid that we met, that young guy, like he and you had that, house, like you guys knew music upside down. You're both like, it's fine. But the party was, the party was fun. They screwed up the tchotchkes and stuff, or whatever you call them now, the gift bags. Like they made a lot of, and like my sweater like half fell apart. So, but I'm rooting for him. And, but I think, they keep saying like Azuki's time's going to come back. And I think what they're missing is everybody's focused on ordinals now, and there will be a cycle to go back to ETH, maybe when the ETF comes out. Obviously degens don't care about the ETF, but I think whether it's conscious or subconscious, when something's stored on chain, whether it's PFPs or generative art, like it's for that reason, it's going to be extra hard for ETH and Azuki to get people back and to give a crap. They'll watch your video, but they might not buy. They might not buy more Azuki. Yeah. And even when that trailer debuted, I think you and I had just done our last show, and that morning we just happened to look at the price. It was like 3.9 ETH. And then I looked again, it was like 3.8 ETH. I'm like, well, obviously it's all about mystery and news and splash. And well, you're not making a big splash there. Maybe the real one will do better, and they can get on Netflix and become a Web 2 IRL brand across the chasm. If that's the case, I think they got a shot to bring new people in, but those new people might not be paying 30 grand or 10 grand or 8 grand. They'll be like, what? This is where it started. And I like, we would, but would they? So I don't know.
But I go back to the question that we've talked about of how do the holders necessarily benefit from that, say that goes and it becomes a big, mainstay or a big, cultural thing in Web 2 or whatever it is. How does that impact XYZ holder? Because it's not as if there's any sort of revenue share, or even it's allowed to have any sort of revenue share. So aside from your PFP potentially having your number go up, you're not really baked into the cake of the success that you would see with adoption or more views or anything from that. So that's where I keep going back to. And then I have this question for you. Mm-hmm. We talked about, I've asked you, is how this halving feels different. And, you talked about the energy, and I can understand all the reasons for that. Back in previous cycles, were there as much pronounced kind of degens and proud degens, or is that more of a newer faction from kind of the NFT, era? And, I know that there were shit coins and ICOs and different things like that, but it feels like now we're dealing with a whole new force that can really drive mind share, drive, kind of what's important. And ultimately you're seeing those were the folks that got early rewarded with like the RSIC airdrop and things like that. So is it kind of a shift in a weird way, in a kind of empowering way that, people say degen and then has, double connotations, right? Like, degen could be construed as, we don't want to talk about that. But by the same token, is degen really now the representation of tastemakers moving forward? And is that the most crucial kind of contingent of the ecosystem to be able to drive mind share and drive action?
So it's a good complex question. I guess the degen that all started on the ETH side. Like I said, I wasn't there for the early Bored Ape days. I came in that next generation kind of with Azuki. Obviously, I wasn't there for CryptoPunks the beginning, so I was really that third wave. I was early to crypto but late to NFTs and to that whole
Right.
ecosystem. And once I got into it, I fell in love. So yeah, there was that. But I think now, maybe because we're more into it on the ordinal side, I feel like the language has evolved over time. So it's just like, it is more of a celebration. I'm sure all that was going on back then, but like I said, I wasn't really a Bored Ape.
You
But
didn't have the communities as much, I guess,
yeah, and
right?
obviously they didn't invent this, but aping in and all that stuff like that was obviously used a ton. So it's just evolved over time. But yeah, the degenning, and I think the cool thing about the spaces that we've been doing is we're like totally degen in, have fun, buy art, and art's not the focus right now. It also is probably a good time to buy an art or a PFP that you want. I mean, if you really wanted a Node Monk, it's probably cheaper now than it's been. Maybe it goes down or up. I don't know. But there's a lot of collections. Disco and I are looking at another collection that we've held off on, and I'm not telling you until we buy it because we're cheap asses and we want to make sure it's still kind of cheap. But there's some cool stuff out there, and the focus is so on runes right now in the halving that
Yeah.
some of these collections seem that have good communities, I should say, seem pretty cheap. So yeah, it's evolved. And I think you had a whole second part to that question, but just coming off being kind of sick in that long show yesterday, I
Yeah.
don't even know what the second part of your question was.
Yeah, it's in the rearview mirror, sir. I was just basically trying to see, is there more of a kind of an influence of the degen and, kind of where that genesis came from? Because before, yeah, you would have what were more considered like early adopters and collectors. But now I love the embracing of, everyone's part degen to a degree. And I love that it is, it's celebrated and it really does drive, impact on the market overall. So I'm here for it completely. I know you always have to protect yourself and not go full on and go on just crazy benders and stuff like that. But if you don't scratch the itch once in a while, you're missing out on some of the fun.
Yeah, for sure. I'm just seeing if the numbers. Okay, so 30. I'm looking. We have 306. This is the first time we've clipped 300. Maybe horizontal's the way, or maybe just because of all the spaces we're doing. Like I said, with RSIC and all the pooling, like we're just kind of riding on that. But whoops. Oh, great. I've got like my phone locked, and I've got okay. Get out of that stupid show. So I'm referring to my show being in my show. So I was the 307th listener, but now I'm out. So it's back to 306. But I wanted to see, I didn't know if this ticker was a cumulative and people were leaving, but it says 308 on the top of the screen. And that's pretty cool because I feel like when you get to 2 or 300, not that I know being self-referential probably annoying to some of you, but we're just being upfront and honest. Like if you're going to do a spaces, I feel like 100 is kind of that magic number, maybe even 80 or 90. But obviously if you got big shows like, something with good things or maybe Leonidas, like, yeah, you're going to be third or fourth place, at least for now. But getting to 100, I think is key. And then to like 300, cause it's like the bigger you get, the more to the left you go. And these live streams that we're doing through Periscope, where you get to see our old, haggard mugs, it turns it pink. And I think it kind of slides into the left a little. I think you get the little bonus. I think it's square. Oh no, it's still circular. Some are square. You see that? Like maybe that's the people who pay for the gold emblem or something.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. The others are more rounded edges, but there are the straight squares.
So I know Disco, you were saying like let's get I think once we're rebranded and we get like if we just decide like this is our Decentral Lens logo, or if that lemon haze one is pretty damn cool. It was hard to get the writing good. And I think we all struggled with that because the logo I think is so pure and clean and kind of like electric on its own. But, I think once we get the logo situated, we can probably take that whole thing kind of the next level too.
Yeah, I think that we can work on the UX. It was big. It was big to kind of get the horizontal going and have that kind of play through and work through. But we got a lot of ideas cooking in terms of where we can take this and kind of fine tune. We've had no expectations of trying to build in public and do anything too crazy. It was more just let's see, kind of find our footing. And I think that we're both kind of itching to kind of up the level in terms of the platform and the experience. And we've been kind of playing around with, can we do the X Live and what can we do? Well, there we go. See, it could kind of work really well,
I
actually.
know. I love this logo. So Lemon, I bought this off Lemon Haze. This is a part of the Artifact collection. He is absolutely one of my favorite folks. And like I said, I think we brought him up like 4 times in the show today. I'm gonna have to send him a copy and be like, just so you know, we can't stop talking about you and Otto. But there's something like the stained glass. Like, I just love this logo, and it kind of fits with the Decentral lens. But the way we had it originally branded, that's, obviously there's a lot of like AI inspired, and as cool as AI is, like, unless you really know how to use your keywords and mimic certain artists and stuff, you pretty much get this type of stuff. Whereas Lemon Haze, like, he's an artist and he's awesome. But maybe as we rebrand, we, like, if there's a way to keep this, I would say the best of all worlds, you keep this, and then the Decentral lens the text, you make those work together. I don't know if they go together that well, but maybe if this rainbow becomes some of the colors from this, maybe we make another effort. He had it here and kind of on the downside. Like, I don't know, like, there's got to be a way to pull this off.
I like the geographic angles. I like that it feels almost stained glassy, like, I think it's like totally modern, but it totally has that, old school appeal. And I love, you're just looking essentially at squares and triangles, and there's tons to find, and it's almost like a game. So I could lose myself in that, and we got to figure out how to do that.
Yeah, for sure. So, and of course, now I got to see, in case people aren't looking. So it's part of the artifacts. And then you got to go full here. You got to go here. Where is it? Oh, that one's awesome. That plays Zakata. That one's pretty cool. I'm going to have to buy another one. So nobody front run me, please. There it is. So it's called Biarritz, and I think he did it for different types of art styles. This one's awesome too. So anyway, Lemon Haze, we're completely featuring your stuff on here because art is being ignored right now. It's all about runes. I don't know what else we got for the show, Disco. We always vow to do like a news show first. It's going to be like stuff, but you know what? It flows too much. You just got to do it all together. Like, who are we kidding? Maybe we'll do a little side 10-minute show like we did just for like for YouTube, RSIC, what to expect in the runes halving. Maybe we'll just do a 20-minute stream of consciousness session. But I think we get rolling by 40, 50 minutes. And some of this news, let's be honest, some of this macro stuff, it's interesting because it affects us downstream, but some of this shit's boring. No one gives a shit,
that's why it consciously gets omitted, because it's like, do we really want to do that? But needless to say, there's a lot of news. We want to keep I think it's more important to kind of keep the lens that we look at it from, we say macro, but it's kind of just go big picture and then narrow down into what the most interesting kind of divots in the road are at each time, and we can kind of focus on those. And one thing I'd like to kind of put a call out to folks is we'd love to have a lot of interactivity. I appreciate the folks that make comments, but if you have an idea for a topic or you want to jump on and sit with us, and we'd love to do that. I know early on we did it with Dr. G, who was a listener, and then said, hey, have you guys thought about doing anything like this? And the next week we had him on, and it was one of my favorite shows. So I know that there's subject matter experts and enthusiasts and a lot of brilliant, sharp folks out there. So kind of an open call from our perspective. Hit us up. We'd love to be able to incorporate you into whatever we're trying to build and what we're trying to do. So, the doors are always open, and we appreciate that. And we look at all feedback as a gift. So anything you guys have any ideas, we'll certainly be receptive.
Yeah, absolutely. The only other thing, Disco, I'd like to bring up before we go, I just caught this like on mid sheet. Like the big institutions are coming. Like, Someone made a great tweet. I need to start documenting who's making these tweets, but it's probably the same people. Like B-Ways is always like doing hot, like kind of like,
Yeah,
I would say cynical, but like hot, like takes that he doesn't pull punches. Like a lot of those OMBs, I love them because they're just like, this is how I see it. This is how it is. I'm not going to sugarcoat it, and you're welcome. So hats off to you, B-Ways. But Franklin Templeton has just issued a report, everybody, and Franklin Templeton does have one of the 11 ETFs, right? It's literally their logo is of Benjamin Franklin. Yes, it's like that Franklin Templeton, like old and stodgy, but obviously at least they're listening to the younger folks, I assume younger in their company, who are like, no, you don't understand. Like, yes, there's Bitcoin, but there's ordinals and there's runes. Like, you got to degen. And, like if the CEO and the C-suite's cool enough, they'll be like, all right, kid, come in. And then all of a sudden, like it's 10 at night. They're like, oh shit, I got to get home to my family, and they're like, I just bought a nat cat, like, so the cool thing is like, like degen stuff's happening even at the Bitcoin Policy Summit. I got to reach out to that. What was that kid's name? Zell. He hits us. Yeah. The kid who these guys are like 30 who run this, super serious, have all these senators up there. They did a great job with it. And he kind of saw our lanyards, and we snuck out of there with this super cool guy named Damien, who's in the music scene in Chicago and wants to empower like individual musicians to like maybe start getting money in he's trying to pair crypto with music, with all the monopolies out there and the big catalogs that, and the ticket masters that screw everybody. But the founder walked up and he's like, hey, what'd you think? And of course, Disco and Damien were like, oh, it was totally cool. And I'm like, it was awesome. But, 'cause his partner was like, yeah, and Bitcoin is only a currency and that's its use. And it felt like he was catering to the crowd. And I just said, dude, like, tell your partner not to finish a full 9-hour thing. Like, by the end, Disco and I were like, we're going to make it to the end. Like, we got terrible sleep because of this shitty Airbnb we were in. And we were just, we were like, we're going to say we made it to the whole thing. And we got rewarded by that Jeff Booth guy and basically saying, like, Bitcoin has reached an all-time high in every country. Like, it's happening, buckle up. And we're like, with the last remnant of energy, we said, heck yeah. But we told this guy, I'm like, don't have your guy close the whole conference especially when you had a whole L2 and like runes panel. And he's like, oh yeah, dude, I'm a total degen. I've got a bunch of pups. And he's like, and so does he. So I don't know why he said it. I'm like, cause he's catering to the crowd. So I said, you tell him, next year we're coming and we're going to have a whole, like, I'm not doing any side panel. Like we're going front and center and we're going to
main stage, fireside on D.
Yeah. Sorry. This is Blutoshi and Disco and Cynthia Loomis. Like ordinals and degens, we're here to F and stay. Sorry, not sorry. Any questions? And just stand up and like glare at people and be like, bring it. Freedom of speech is just as important as freedom to transact. And we got to do L2s for cheaper fees anyway. So no better time than the present to innovate. The amount of innovation that's come in through ordinals and now runes with developers, like, hey, Bitcoin Core, you're welcome. I know you're saying welcome for what? We want to harden this thing and make it money only. We want to make it money only too. I don't know how I feel about OP-Cat and the whole the whatever Udi's collection is. Like, if it like, I'm in 100% agreement with the maxis. If any updates come to Bitcoin that are more for like ordinals and art and stuff like that, I'd say, and it's could be a net negative, or it makes it the Bitcoin network less secure. I would say 100% do not do it. Like, I love that Bitcoin and ordinals and runes have limitations. Now, if you can make upgrades that don't sacrifice the hardening and the immutability at all, like, I'm game. And I'm not a coder, so right. I'm not smart enough to make that decision right now. But like if because a lot of people are accusing Udi and OP-Cat and all that stuff of trying to change it. People are afraid they're trying to change it more for what they call spam on the network, which we call art and full awesome, like, hang with everybody degen culture. So I think I was going to make like 1 point, and then I was going to make 2, then 3, and then 6. And then I think I just didn't make like 9. So I don't know if I brought him to the woods and brought him home.
No, I think it turned into a baker's dozen. It started with a little, it was a little Franklin Templeton,
Oh,
is
that's
just
right.
getting in
Thank
on
you.
runes, and they have a little piece that's bullish on it, and they're talking, and I'm just looking at the actual thing, and it's just so corporate. Like there's a at the bottom, there's a Bitcoin Ordinals market cap graph. And after the release of Ordinals theory in December 22 by Casey, the Ordinals market cap has grown significantly up to 2 billion as of April 2024. So it's, it's not a case of, just people being alone in their basements thinking that they're onto something. Like it's kind of been validated from that perspective that we're sitting at the precipice of a new time, and that new time's, looking at supposedly 419. We all kind of still wish it'll be 420, but we are going to be looking at a before and after, significant, impact in terms of the development of this technology overall. And I think that it'll be extremely fascinating. I hope for everybody who's got plays out there, God, I hope that everybody ends up, I hope the ship rises and we have a lot of folks that are able to kind of look at their lives a little bit differently and can experience, some different perspectives as a result of what they've invested in and taken a chance on and immerse
Yeah.
themselves with. So we're looking at a really exciting, kind of next couple of days, and it'll be interesting to kind of time capsule this one and then take a look at it next week after the halvening and seeing, kind of this runes reckoning and where we are. But as I say, I wouldn't trade my ticket and my seat in this show and this ecosystem for anything right now. I feel, a little bit sad for people that aren't involved, because it's just so freaking exciting and fun, and hopefully we can see a lot of people get, kind of level up a lot of different things in their lives. And I'm hoping that I'd love everything to be a massive success. So let's just be bullish and see how it goes. And at the end of the day, as we've said, you stick to it, you stack sats, you're probably going to end up being in a great position. So you don't have to go too crazy, but it's certainly fun to kind of watch the movie and get involved.
Yeah, 100%. And you just inspired me to take the high road here. But I guess as most of the listeners here, I assume, are, they've been around for a while. They've seen our spaces. They've been into Bitcoin. They've probably been to ETH or maybe Solana. And I guess when I see like Forbes come in, and this, I'm not going to lie, like this logo is pretty cool, but they bought the gold seal, so they spent the 10 grand. Obviously they're gonna, I was going to be a little more, cause I was on a cynical, sarcastic roll before, and I did listen to the show, and it felt a little like they were, the guy was talking a little like he was the kingmaker. And I guess for me, if I go there, like we're all the community, the people who started this, like I don't want to see it go in the hands of corporate America. I will say, like, they brought Hardo in though, and as I'm scrolling, I'm kind of softening up. Like your legacy pass, like, yeah, no, don't need to vote for the Forbes. What, like, like in real life, I own a dev company, and we were one of the first iPhone developers in the world, and we could have gone for all these awards and stuff. And me and my business partner were like, do you care about awards or anything like that? Like, or do we just like building cool shit? And he's like, couldn't care less. I'm like, good. Like people are like, hey, get featured on, in magazines like this. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter anymore. But then I see like they're supporting Dr. Crypto, who's freaking awesome. Like the dude's a killer artist. He's got Circuit City. And Circuit City is like, I love this kind of art. It's just awesome. Absolutely beautiful. So, you know what, Forbes, like, now I'm going to expect you to let me on the show and at least give an OG taste. And like, it felt a little too radio produced, it's like, because then they even said like Hardo, like, and Vivid Hardo along for the ride. I'm like, dude, he's not along for any ride. Those guys basically were one of the first in here doing super cool stuff. So like, yeah, you're welcome to come in, but just watch your tone, watch your tone. Yeah. So I guess that's all I'll say, but they're supporting Dr. Crypto, and that's a win to me. A lot of this Forbes legacy pass, like I think I'm going to pass on that without doing much research, but like I scrolled down, I saw another, okay, so we got another Dr. Crypto. So Dr. Crypto, shout out to you. You're awesome. I think I was on Steven Miller's show with you once, and I love your takes and I love your art. But anyway, so they did the show. I don't know if that was so that was the yesterday one. I listened to it, and I'm just like, I think I need to maybe put on big boy pants a little and just be like, I should be appreciative kind of what you were just saying, that they're coming and they're here. And at least Forbes knew to pivot before, obviously magazines are already dead. Like advertising on your website as your chief source of revenue, that's pretty much dead. Like, and then you look like, like, you want me to pay for a Forbes subscription, $122 a year? Like, whatever. And they'll be like, how much are Nat Cats? $6,000? Like, give me six, like all of a sudden you just throw it off, and
your perspective.
It's a little different. Like 0.06 Bitcoin, even though like the biggest mistake I made when I first switched over to Ordinals from ETH, I'm like, two is chill. Like 2 ETH is cheap. It's like, and now I'm like, I may have overpaid for a couple of things in those early days. Now I'm a little better. I'm like, okay, I just like beat it into my head. Like, okay, 0.1 is like $6,000. 0.01 is like 600. Like just keep using that, barometer, $7,000, whatever Bitcoin's at. But so Forbes, you're welcome.
Indeed. All right. Well, I think we're hitting that point where we've kind of talked it through. I think that we're sitting at a super exciting time again. And, I think you should plug that you'll be doing an event or a spaces on Friday with Scribe, right? I'm going to be sitting that one out because I'll be on a plane going across the country to deal with some more family situation.
Right.
But
then we wish you all the best and luck on that. Yep. But so big space is Friday. I think it's at noon Central Time, but I'll actually check with Scribe and I'll post it today just so everyone has plenty of time. But we're gonna go. The halving is Friday and it's pretty locked in. I was just looking at Mempool earlier today. I believe it's slated to be around 8 p.m. Central. So it will be 4:20, I believe, UTC time, probably like 2 a.m, 3 a.m, whatever UTC translates to. But it will be like later evening on Friday, which is great for me and my sleep schedule. And I'm waking up to play hockey the next morning, so that'll be good for me. But I have a feeling I will not be sleeping all that much, if even to cover it. Disco had a great idea, just scrolling. I may use that Nuke app just to scroll the tickers, or maybe I'll use Luminex. It just depends which one, and just show the runes in real time. And if I telegraph my trades, that's probably a dangerous thing. I'll be like, the private key flashes there. I'll be like, whoops, like, hey, I made these great trades and I got drained. So, but I'll probably do something fun there. Well, but the show will be during the day, 6 hours before the halving. I'm sure Good Things is going to do something fun. So Scribe and I will probably pop in and out of other people's shows as allowed, and to have fun and to keep that ball rolling. But this is it. This is the pre-runes, and just play responsibly, stack sats. And if you have a play, or if you do have a little sniping tool to see runes as they're coming across the board, maybe in that 1 through 9 runes, maybe take a little gamble. But and if you take a big gamble and you're like, what, this is degen money, like this is, if it would, like that Chris guy was saying on our show yesterday, this may be the chance of a lifetime, and it may not be. We just don't know yet. But I think innovation on runes is going to keep going for a while this year. So this may truly be Ordinal Rune summer.
Yeah. And just to tail on what you just said there, as we always note, like this is a show that's more for entertainment purposes and, not financial advice. Always, do your own research, and more importantly, get a handle on, what you're interested in, what and what you kind of feel most comfortable. Don't always wade into other waters just because you're hearing about them. If you do, make sure you keep your swimmies on and make sure you don't get pulled under the tide, and make sure you don't get over your skis in terms of going too fast on the wrong diamond runs or something like that. But enjoy the ride, because as I've said, I just keep going back to it. Like, I have gratitude for just being in this space and being in the loop on some of this stuff. And I'm just excited to see the next kind of chapter in this adventure. So I appreciate everybody tuning in. And as we said, keep the doors open. If you have ideas or anything, please let us know, because we'd love to work that in as we look to evolve kind of what we're building here.
Absolutely, absolutely. So with that said, thank you, Disco, for the great outro. But yeah, you have a safe trip. We'll see you or hear you on Spaces Friday. We've got a couple other fun things planned, but we won't go there yet. But this has been a fun show.
Yeah.
Yesterday I was exhausted. I was sick. Come on here, and the second we start recording, it's just like it's fun to just be candid and honest and not pumpy and just kind of have fun with it. So take care, everybody. Please tell your friends if you like the show. Tell people about it. Follow us on Decentral Lens. This will be a podcast too. So if you like to listen, to the beauty of YouTube or Spotify or Apple Music, like I used to think I was a really fast talker, but as I've gotten older, Disco and I might be a little slower. So if you do Blutoshi and Disco at a 1.25 or a 1.5x and you get your info quicker, like I don't blame you. When we review the show, I generally go to 1.25, even 1.5 if I just want to fly through it, just for the details. But we wouldn't be offended. And so follow us everywhere. Tell people about it because that's how you hear about it. And we're trying to change this whole influencer mindset of like, the whole thing that Disco and I did with Scribe, ODM, Ordinals, degenerate mindset. It's like what influencers are trying to capture your attention and how do you keep the discipline to have fun in this space, make some money, but join some cool communities? Like, how do you balance it all and not just get fed a bunch of bullshit from influencers who are behind closed doors? They're in private discords. Don't think that they're not. And it's happening on the ordinal side. Like, if this show gets bigger, obviously we'll have advertisers, but we're going to delineate very clearly. But just be smart out there and follow the right people and tell other people who the right people are, because like no one wants to see people get wrecked and lose their sats and their Bitcoin, which is the most valuable thing you can own right now going into the halving. So soapbox number 35, check.
Amen.
Anything to add to that before we sign off? We appreciate everybody here, and subscribe, like, and do all that fun stuff.
Yeah, see you guys on the other side.
Later. All right. Hold on, I got to do the outro. Totally blew it.